rise one day at a time. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. They're here to get your day going fine. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio. Kimmy Kim and Elations Radio.
And here's your host, Miss Kim Robinson.
Happy Saturday, and thank you for joining me on Next Level with Trenace. You got it. This is Trenace, and we're back. It's been a couple of weeks, but we're back with it and about to hit you hard with some of these great shows. I am so happy that you are spending 60 minutes, give or take, of your 1,440 minutes of your Saturday with me. Yes,
Hello.
thank you so much. So today we're going to be talking to one of my good friends, life coach Stacey Henry Carr, hypnotherapist. Thank you for joining us in the studio today, Stacey.
Hi, Trenace. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me?
I can.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I got to do the
Thank you
soundtrack.
so much.
You're welcome.
So,
how are you
I want
today?
to talk about. I'm good, and thank you so much for joining me, being my first kickoff show for I guess the second session or second I guess we semestering at Next Level with Trenace. You know, I'd taken a little break to work. I had taken a little break to work on, something extra. So the something extra has arrived. That's Queendom Conversations with you and your beautiful bonus daughter were on a couple of weeks ago. Well, just last week, right?
Yes, it was last week. That was phenomenal. Thanks for having us. That is a powerful show. That is those topics that you have with moms and daughters. They are a cultural change. It's awesome. Thank you so much for having us. That was fun too.
Yeah, I wanted to do something a little bit different, and something near to my heart because women, to me, I don't know about other people. Women are the givers of life, and we give life in everything, not just birth and children. We give life to a home. We give life to work environment. We birth businesses. We give life to everything, and we have to kind of change how we think about things and communicate differently to help the new young queens that are going to be adult queens into womanhood, give them a leg up.
Absolutely. Set the stage and the foundation is what I always say, because the rewards are off the charts.
So the reason I wanted you to be my first guest for semester 2, I guess that's what I'll be calling this moving forward, semester 2, was I wanted to talk about, we talked a couple of, let's introduce who you are first, because we just talking like we always talking. Maybe somebody,
I know,
maybe there's
right?
some guests, some people who don't know you. Let them listen to who you are and feel who you are and why I have you as my guest.
All right, I'll do that because we are chatting like we're doing our girlfriend chat, right?
Right.
which is awesome. But here's the thing. So my name is Stacey Henry Carr, and I'm a certified life coach and a certified hypnotherapist. And my biggest point with what I do is mindset shift and allowing my clients and anybody, even if you're not a client, but if you can get a nugget from me via social media or anything that I do, it's typically around shifting your mindset and using that shift to cure you, cure your life, cure your thoughts, cure your relationships. I mean, anything you can think of. The mind is the powerful tool, and if you start there, it will make a drastic change in your life. So that's what I do. That's my work. But I am a mom and my wife. I have a beautiful 11-year-old and a handsome 18-year-old son, and I have a very supporting husband. And because of them, I'm able to do the work that I do. They put up with me. They put up with my coaching sessions and everything else that I have to do around their schedule. And so that's who I am and what I do. And I'm excited to talk with Trenace today on the topic that she chose, and I love it. And I love why she chose it, and I'm going to allow her to share that.
So what we're going to be talking about today is emotions and feelings. We're going to talk about this for a number of reasons. Stacey and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, but what she did not know is that I continue to think on that conversation and think about how COVID-19 has us emotional in
Yes.
our feelings.
Yes.
And many times we get confused, emotions and feelings. Many times we get them confused. And in our conversation, I brought them up. And I talked about them, and she gave a great explanation of the difference of the two, why you should be separating the difference in the two, and having an understanding. And with that knowledge, consider where the world is right now. A lot of us, if we're doing kind of following what the protocol is, because there are those of us that are not, who are not staying in the house, that are not when they're going outside, covering their face. Um, there are people that are in relationships and looking at their mate like, dang, this is who you are. The divorce
Yes.
rate, the divorce rate has gone up. Domestic abuse rate has gone up, and because of these feelings and emotions, things are happening in our lives, in our homes, and in our world that we don't have an understanding of because we don't understand feelings and emotions. How did I do with that?
You did phenomenal. As a matter of fact, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking about how really impactful this topic is because of how and what you tied it to. Tying it to COVID is really important because of the shift in the landscape of how we're living now. But also, you touched something really deep. You touched on how it affects our relationships, that be spousal relationships, or just your relationships with your children. But the heavy one that you touch is the abuse, because with everything that's going on and with us living in a pressure cooker right now, because that's what it feels like, the emotions are high, the feelings/reactions are off the charts. And I say off the charts because some of them are good off the charts, some of them are bad off the charts. And that's the thing about your feelings and your emotions. They can be good and they can be bad. And so you touched on some of those. You touched on the abuse. You touched on, that could be spousal abuse, but it could also be child abuse. It could be sexual abuse. It could be everything that would have typically happened anyway, but now because of the lock and shutdown and because of the shift in us going outside of the household, whether it be to work or to school, those things have heightened and they've gone into a different realm. So, yes, not only did you set it up perfectly, you already touched like some deep, deep parts of why it's important to understand emotions and feelings. So
I'm a thinker, so that's where I took our little conversation. That's where that went.
And I love it. I love that. And, I'm going to say this. We all need friends that we can, that can be open and honest, that could straighten our crowns, that could tell us, hey, I heard you say this, this, this. Let me give you a different perspective. And then you take that and you ran with it. Not only did you go and you reflected on it, which is the best thing we can ever do for ourselves. When you reflect, you can filter. But not only did you reflect on it, now you're giving it out to the world. You're giving it out to your listeners. And I applaud you for that. That's fantastic. But let me say this. Why is it important? Of all the things that you're talking about, that you talked about, one of the other reasons why it's important to identify our emotions and our feelings, our reactions, our responding and our actions to them is because we need to learn how to live authentically. We need to learn how to live away from the rat race and live more introspectively. And we need to learn how to live where we are really putting ourselves first. And in order to do that, we have to understand what our triggers are and what's triggering us to do all the things that we do. Because every day when we get up and we're moving around and we're doing this and we're doing that, there's a reason behind it. And the reason is a lot deeper than just the fact that we woke up and we're doing it. And a lot of us are not conscious of why we do things and where it's coming from and what the root of the things that we're doing or the root of how we're responding to things. We don't understand it. And so guess what happens to us? It takes us into a tailspin. Our emotions feeds our feelings, and our feelings feeds our actions, and it's like it's a wheel. And if we allow it to keep going without interjecting or without pretty much throwing up an interference, then it spirals. And it will spiral us into a lot of places where we don't want to be. Now, if we have good, happy emotions that triggers us into good feelings, then, hey, take that and run with it all day long. But we must recognize when those emotions and feelings are not good for us, and we must recognize when it's time for interference.
That is so important. What I would like for, because in our conversation, you broke down the difference between feelings and emotions, because it's common for us to get them confused when one is an action and one is a feeling. Could you explain the two, the difference in the two?
Absolutely. So emotions, your emotions are those things that are innate. They're instinctive. There are those things that come from deep within you that you really don't have much control over. That's the uncontrollable. And that comes from your body. That comes from within. And emotions are universal. So all of us at some point, for example, felt fear. That's a universal thing. That's an emotion. All of us at some point have felt guilt, anger. Let's talk about some good ones. Joy. We've felt pride. So we've all had those emotions, and those emotions are instinctive, and they're innate, and they're really not controllable. There are things that your brain triggers based on situations, right? So that's what the emotion is. It comes from the body. But the feelings, a little bit different, is that's a controllable, and that comes from your mind. Your feelings is a reaction that you have to the emotion that you're feeling, right? So you're having this emotion, and then you have the feelings that comes from that emotion, and that feeling is what causes you to react or respond. For example, from a fear thing, you either fight or flight, or there are situations where if you feel guilt, you may shut down altogether. There are so many responses, which are your feelings, that you can have to a fear. So the fear is universal, but the response, the feeling, is personal, right? So everybody is not going to feel the same things when they're faced with a fear, or when they're faced with a guilt, or when they're faced with pride or joy or embarrassment. So keeping in mind that although we use the words interchangeably, my emotions or my feelings, and we're not really consciously recognizing that one is just what it is. It's instinctive. That's what everybody feels. Everybody feels a level of fear or a level of joy. But our feelings becomes personal, it's controllable, and it's changeable. And that's why it's so important to be able to separate the two, because if we can, we know which one of those can we truly work on. Can we get rid of a fear? Probably not. Can we manage or change the way we feel about that fear? Absolutely we can.
Yes. So my thought was, when we had our conversation, how you described it, that was just so, it gave me a deeper understanding of why we operate, or why I as an individual operate the way that I operate. Yeah, we all have fears. We all have these feelings in common, but our reactions are what makes us different.
Yeah.
So when people say the reaction, what part is that? What part is your reaction? Your reaction is your emotion or your feeling?
Your reaction is your feelings. So everything that you're doing from the emotion, doing, action, is your feelings. And think about it this way, Trenace, have you ever been in a scenario and you said something, and then after you were done saying it, you go, gosh, maybe I shouldn't have said it that way? Have you ever had that?
I do.
Or maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? Or
I do.
Or we go through this tailspin of rehashing and redoing that thing in our minds, right? But it already happened. But we can't kick it, and we can't stop thinking about it because our feelings triggered the way we reacted to it. And that's the important part, because the way we react to things, that's what really causes it to be either negative or positive. That's what really causes us to stay in that tailspin of a thing. And here's the thing about it. The emotions are going to come, and we know that it's universal, any of these emotions. We can even go with sadness, or we can go with pride, or, being ashamed of something. Everybody at some point will feel that. But the feelings part, where you were, like you said earlier, when you're in your feelings, that's when you're either going to cry, or you're going to get sad and depressed, or you're going to find healthier ways to handle it. Maybe you're going to do some meditation. Maybe you're one of those, when you're feeling down, you go for walks. Maybe you get on the treadmill. Maybe you walk the dog, and that's an inside joke. Maybe I couldn't help myself. Or just maybe, there are so many different things that you can do. So I'm glad that you reflected on that, Trenace, because it makes the world a difference to how our life is when we're able to separate the two. Because we can just go, oh, my God, I'm afraid, and then we don't recognize that. Just because we're afraid, does that mean we have to react or have the feelings of blah, 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 blah? So I'm going to give you a very real-life example, because I think it's important. So there may be people who are out there that have gone through domestic abuse. And let's say they left that person, they had a divorce, they separated, they're gone. But that person, every time they send them a message for whatever reason, maybe they have children together and there's messaging that's going back and forth. But every time that abuser sends a message to this person, the feelings that they get from it could be their heart pounds really hard, or their stomach, that drop in your stomach. So you start getting those physiological feelings. Some people's reaction and their feelings cause them even to have body issues where they may hurt, they may ache, or they may even go as far as to vomit. I mean, physical headaches, all sorts of things. And so if we stay with this person, so this person has to deal with this abuser or deal with this person who have hurt them, not on the same level. They're no longer in that situation, meaning they're no longer living with them. They don't even have to see them. But every time they get a message from that person, it triggers those negative feelings that automatically make them react a certain way, right? That's a real life situation. People, they go through that every day, all day, because of some reasons from the past. So, go ahead.
So, this is so good. So, with this, with the feelings, we all have the emotions. We all have a feeling. You and I are friends. We can be in the same situation, and our feeling can be different of the two people with the same thing happening. So, how can we learn to change our feeling or reaction, or figure out what that trigger is so that we could change that? Or is that even possible?
It is very possible. That's what makes feelings controllable, right? Your emotions, maybe not, because fear is going to come. And I keep repeating it because with repetition we learn. But the what makes the feeling part changeable is that it is controllable. But the first thing you have to do is find the root. So the root would be, what makes Trenace respond and feel this way when fear happens, or when she's joyful? What makes her do this? What makes her do that? And most of the times, if we can find the root of it, then we can change it to be something different. Because when we find the root, we understand that it is our belief system. So feelings, my friend, it gives meaning to the emotion, right? And those feelings, they come from your belief system. The feelings is how we interpret the emotion, right? And how we interpret the emotion, and everything always falls back to this, are the things that we have learned, whether it be directly or indirectly, growing up, or the things that has happened to us in our past, whether it be young past or just younger than we are past. And these things, you know what I mean, right? So these things will provide kind of like a baseline for us to have our feelings on. And it's not wrong or right, guys. It's just for us to say, I don't like the way this makes me feel. You ever say that? Now, that's some real talk right there. You ever get up and you're going about something and you literally say, I just don't like the way this makes me feel. All right.
All the time. More recently.
That's why it's
a couple of days
more recently. Ago. Okay.
Yeah.
So listen, and that's why it's changeable. So we can go from saying, I don't like the way this makes me feel, so therefore I'm going to do something about it. Right? Now, that feeling may have come from some sort of emotion. It may have come from a sadness. It may have come from a loneliness. It may have come from, anger. So that feeling, whatever that thing is where you're like, yeah, I just don't like the way this makes me feel, then that came from the emotion. So whatever is that thing, the way it makes me feel, if you can define that, right? If it's making you cry, if it's making you laugh, then I'm sure you love it because that's a good emotion. If it's making you cry, then you're like, you know what? That's not a good emotion. If it's not a good feeling, I mean. If it's making me depressed, where I'm drawing the curtains and I'm under the sheets and I'm feeling this anxious, my heart is racing, my belly feels empty and my legs are weak. Listen, I know these feelings. I've been there. I've felt those, and they are horrible. But when you can identify it, you can go, I don't like the way this makes me feel. You can say, and I'm going to do something about it. So your question was, what can we do? So I have to call myself the master of digging into my feelings, because I'll stop abruptly. Like I am that woman that will be in the middle of crying about something, and I will literally stop and ask myself, now, what are you crying for? What are you crying about, and why are you crying? Because at that point, what I'm recognizing is that if I don't stop and analyze it right now, it could spiral into something deeper, and it could keep me into that negative feeling. So the first step to answer your question is for us, the first step to changing it is to identify that we're feeling it, identify that it is what it is, and then now we got to say, why are we feeling this way about that, whatever that thing is? What is it that it's reminding us of? Listen to this, guys. Listen to this. Trenace's listeners, listen. What is it that this feeling is reminding me of? Remember I said it's how we interpret our memories. It's how we interpret our beliefs. It's the meaning we give to things from the past. And if you can identify, and I know this sounds deep, and yes, it's some deep work, and it may take time, and it doesn't happen over time, and it could be difficult too, because you're having to really like be honest with yourself. And sometimes when we're honest with ourselves, you know, our mind is like, don't do that. Don't be honest to yourself. It's going to hurt. But once we do it, then the hurt comes and it goes, and then you can feel the rewards from that. That's where the authentic you really comes about, because you start feeling the rewards from actually feeling it, acknowledging it, and being honest. So once you do that, then you can start thinking of more productive ways to replace. Listen to what I'm saying. Replace. The only way to get rid of a negative feeling is to replace it with a positive feeling. You have to replace it. And if your action that comes from that thing is negative, now you have to replace that with a positive action. And listen, because we're so used to the negative side of the house, because it's everywhere in our lives, it's what we've seen growing up, it's what we hear every day, it's what our friends do, it's what our neighbors do. The most difficult thing at first to do is to cut down the negative chatter about yourself and other people and replace it with something positive. It's not easy, guys, but it's possible.
Well, that is true. My as I call it, my job work. It's very easy for me to be negative about my job work, but when it comes to other parts of my life, I don't really feel negative about that because I get to choose the experiences that I want to deal with. At my job work, it's one person after the next person after the next person, and the experience changes, the emotion changes, because the emotion is how I react.
Mhm.
Did I learn it?
The feelings is how you react. The emotions come, and then your feelings about how you're feeling. If somebody says something derogatory or they're talking down to you, then your feelings could be one where now you're ready to be like, oh, hold on, and you're ready.
So see, my hold on is I can't say what I do. I'll tell you later what I do.
Yes,
so
I
have a reaction. I have a reaction.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, that's what you get.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, Trenace. Sometimes some people deserve that.
Yeah, my reaction is when I react, it'll be like, well, that's what you get, and that's it.
Yes.
So,
but it's important though. You said a word that I don't want to forget. I wrote it down quickly so I don't forget. We run around here thinking that we don't have a choice. And we have a choice. You said choose. You said I choose to. Those were your words. And so we can choose to not respond or react with the negative emotions. We can choose to shift permanent. That's my cousin's favorite saying, and I've taken it on. So practice makes permanent. And you could choose to practice. I have done things like catch myself in the middle of my statement and change it and replace it with something positive. And the more I've practiced that and the more I catch myself doing these things, the more it becomes more commonplace for me to put a negative thought there. And I have learned silence. And the reason why I've learned silence is because when an emotion kicks in, the emotion of betrayal that I've had recently, and it's an emotion that I had experienced as a child. And I remember as it was happening to me, my mind reverted back to that 16-year-old who had that betrayal. And I started feeling, here we go, so that was the emotion. I started feeling my anxiety of my heart was feeling like it was racing, and I felt this very uncomfortable feeling in the pit of my stomach. And so I made, here's the word, I made a choice to, instead of staying into that moment, and the only way to stay into that moment is to entertain it. So I made the choice. I was like, instead of entertaining this crap, I am going to replace it. And the only way to replace it is to, one, I'm done talking. I am done dealing with this. And this is where the choice is, guys. We can either stay in the chaos and the confusion and let it spiral us into God knows what, and spiral us into a place that is not healthy, very unhealthy, and spiral us into authentic, not authentic people, and spiral us into all these other things. We can make a choice to say, I will not deal with it. I'm not talking about it. I'm not dealing with you. You've got to go, or I'm not answering this phone. I'm not looking at this text message, blah, 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 blah. You know the deal, because we have that choice. But here's what I notice about us as human beings, because we all do it, including myself. It's like we have the choice, yet we act like we don't, and we become sucker to punishment, and we stay there, and we keep letting this action trigger an emotion that spirals a feeling, and I'm saying it like that because I'm showing y'all how it works, that makes us go down some sort of rabbit hole or some sort of hamster wheel, and messes up our authenticity, messes up our joy, messes with our success, Because, sometimes, most of the times, we have productive work that we're doing, and this stuff just comes in and throws us off balance. And the bottom line is the word you use, Trenace, is choice. So here's my question to everybody, and to Trenace too. If you have the choice, be silent instead of saying the negative things that will spiral you, which would you choose?
Well, it seems so simple to say, to not say anything. But see, the other thing is, sometimes it just feels so darn good to do or say what it is in that moment. I'm just being real.
Yes. I love it because it's so true. Who are you telling?
It just feels so good.
Yes.
It makes a smile creep up on my face when I do something that I know that I shouldn't do it, but I just choose to do it anyway.
Yes,
because you have hurt my feelings. You have said something disrespectful. You have whatever it was. When I feel that and I do it in that moment, you don't even know that I've done it, but I know I know that I have done it.
And listen, and it's the best feeling. We have to have so much discipline. I love that because that's the honest truth that you just said, and that's 95% of the population right there. It truly
But see, some people won't even say it, but some people won't even say it. They won't even say it. They won't acknowledge it. And see, the thing, there's this verbiage, there's this sentence that I hear all the time, that it chaps my hide. It burns me up. I am feeling some type of way. So what are you feeling? So for me, if I feel something and I can't touch it, smell it, feel it, figure it out, I have to stop everything that I'm doing to investigate what this is and why.
And that's healthy. That is so healthy, Trenace. Probably the healthiest thing you can ever do. But not a lot of people can do it because they're afraid of how and what it will make them feel, what other people will think. They're afraid of a lot of external stuff. And if we can remove the concept of the external things, what people think, how it looks, how it's going to make me feel for that exact moment, the deep-rooted issues that it will bring up for that moment, the bottom line is the long-term gain is why I think what you're saying is so healthy, because it's a short-term feeling or a short-term what people think of you, which honestly we need to do a lot better job, and that's a whole different podcast there, but we need to do a better job about what we feel about what other people think. But it is healthy what you just said. It's really healthy that we identify, that we investigate, because that's how we'll be able to replace it. But let me I'm gonna back up real quick and say this. You know that silent thing that I'm talking about? It's not silent where you keep it in and it hurts you. It's not that type of silence. It's a very introspective way of working through your feelings, and you get a long-term solution. That silence that I practice, I'm a writer, and I always say writing is my healing power. So that silence that I practice, it's a silence towards you, but I write it out. but I put pen to paper just to get it out of my system. So it's not that hole in your feelings and let it suffocate you and cause you illness. Not at all. I do not advocate that. Please don't. It's about don't continue to spew it out and fuel the chaos and fuel the confusion, because all that's going to do is continue to spiral you. Find a way to either constructively, like you said, Trenace, let that out, or silence it and find another way to either, reflectively do it by writing or whatever that is. So there are ways to get it out, but man, it is such a healthy thing to be able to acknowledge those feelings, not just to say, I know that I'm feeling some sort of way and I'm just going to sit here and feel that way, let my heart beat, let my belly bottom fall in, because that will cause you illnesses, physical illnesses.
Boy, I think people see me as this goody-goody that doesn't feel anything. I always am happy. But if people would spend, when I invite you into my circle to spend time with me, you get the opportunity to see who I am, how I am. And it's nothing like what people see or what people assume.
Yeah.
Most people, like you described it yesterday, I'm like that that strawberry candy. If you don't know me, that's what people think. I'm this hard, tough exterior. Or you see me as this super sweet person who does no wrong, who is not mean or anything. You see all of that. But there's a bunch of layers to me.
Yes.
And there are a bunch of layers to all of us. And I think that when we don't fear investigating our emotions and our feelings, then we get a better understanding of who other people are when we investigate ourselves.
Yes. Yes. And we have to, that's perfectly said, and investigating ourselves, because everything we do start with us. Everything, the way people treat us, because of us. So, even when we get all mad and we're out there just mad at the world because the world is being unkind, or mad at a person because the person is da-da-da-da, we have to train ourselves to train others how to treat us. And it is just the way we treat ourselves. The way we treat ourselves is the way other people will treat us. And so we set those boundaries, and it all starts with us. And all of those layers that you talked about, Trenace, is what makes you so beautiful to me. And that's what makes you real. That's why I love that you were tied to the word authentic, because that's truly who you are. The layers of us that we're able to show people, and yes, of course, we don't have to show it all at one time, and some people don't deserve to see some of the layers, but those layers, that's what makes us who we truly are, and those are the layers that helps us to be able to serve others, because me and you, we're in the business of serving people, but we have layers to us. You have seen some of my layers, me and you being friends, and we FaceTime or talk on the phone, and I'm able to take off Coach Stacy's hat and just be straight up Stacy. And that's a layer that you know. There's a layer that my friends know, other friends know, but not everybody has to see all the layers, and not everybody will. When they deserve it, yes. But I do believe that the layers that I have seen of you is what makes you who I totally, completely love. It's very colorful, and it has that hard candy approach on the outside, but mushy-gushy on the inside. And people may not see that. because they, you know why they haven't seen it? Because they haven't earned it. You have to earn that.
Yeah, that's true. It's a whole lot. But it wasn't long for you and I, but there are other people. You know, what you get is what you receive. What you give off is what comes back.
Yeah.
If you're open, then you can receive. But when you're open, that also allows other people to be open.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. And all of us are running out there being dictated by our emotions and our feelings, and we're letting them control us instead of us taking control. And the part that we can take control of are those feelings. And all of that is tied to who we are, the layers that you see, the layers we show. But, you know, one of the things that I'm learning being a Black female and looking at my culture and all of the oppression and suppression and everything that we've been through, there's a lot of times where we need to experience different new things and new experiences. We truly need to expose ourselves more to different things. And when I learned how to be a hypnotherapist, and I recognized how doing that regression part of it helped to tap emotions that I didn't even know I had there, and feelings and the way I react to feelings really allowed me to do that deep-rooted awareness. So there are other things that, you know, your listeners can expose themselves to and really put themselves in different communities of people and learn new things that will help them through this process, because there's a better version inside of you. There's an awakened, a hidden purpose that needs to be awakened. There are all these things, speaking of layers, waiting, and the only way for it to truly happen is if we understand our emotions, understand how it triggers our feelings, and learn how to manage them.
Yeah, that is, I will say this. Since 2013, when I released my first book, my circle started to change. Who I connected with started to change. What I started doing started to change. And sometimes people in general don't get the change that they desire or even have knowledge of that they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
They don't ever reach that peak until they actually start changing who they're connected to, because they don't even realize that the circle they're in is stifling their growth.
Mhm. Yes.
The circle that you're in is stifling your growth. If you're the smartest person in your circle, then you need to change
circles. New circle. Yes. Yes, you need a new circle.
As smart as I am, everybody in my circle, I believe, is smarter than me.
Yes, you have to. That's how I am too.
As good as I am at some things, there's somebody better than me in my circle.
Yes, I agree. And the moment we stay stuck in the same circle, community, environment, tribe, it's when we stop growing.
Exactly that. Now we have 6 minutes, so I want you to let the people know where they can follow you, to connect with you, because I think she's a dope. Stacey hypnotized me, y'all. And, you know, that's deep. I know a lot of people think that that's super crazy, but, you know, when you want more, you can't keep doing the same things and expect some type of change. So you have to do something different. So my doing something different has been the fruit of the things that you all have been seeing me do. That's what I'll say. It's been the fruit of what you all have been seeing me do. So you all can follow Stacy on Instagram and on Facebook and schedule a hypnotherapy session. And Stacy's a life coach. I'm a life coach. Book Stacy, book me. Tell the good people how they can contact you.
Okay. So listen, just to your point, if you keep doing the same old thing, it's just insanity. So you got to find a way. We've got to find a way as a culture to shift. Kudos and congratulations to my friend for allowing and trusting me to do such a deep process that got her through understanding some of her emotions. I'm Stacey Henry Carr, STACEYHENRY CARR, no spaces, no hyphen. You can find me on all social media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, as Stacey Henry Carr. And one of the things that I do, of course, is the hypnotherapy session, that's taking you in a regression, upgrading your inner child. All of that will help you to make peace with your past, because 9 times out of 10 it's standing in your way. And we got to accept so that we can heal. Not forget, because forgetting is not possible, but accept so you can heal. And so reach out to me, guys. I also have a website, StaceyHenryCarr.com. So everything is my name, and on my website you'll see my services. I even have a book-in calendar. So, we have to do something different. And I appreciate Trenace for always being my support, my advocate, friend, and, we straighten each other's crowns on a daily basis when necessary. I also give counsel because, listen, coaches need coaches too. Don't ever forget that. Don't think that you are in any position to not gain more. And so thank you so much, my friend, for inviting me on today, because I thought this was not only a great conversation for listeners, but to hear myself say it was a wonderful reminder for me.
Well, I love you. And I know that somebody is going to get something out of this. Somebody.
Good.
And all it takes is one. And somebody may hear your voice and receive it. Somebody may hear my voice and receive it. And somebody may listen to it and pass it to somebody else. And they may get it from that person that they didn't get it from either one of us. So that's how that works.
Perfect.
So I want to thank everyone for rocking with us this afternoon. Be safe, because the coronavirus, COVID-19, is still out here. Cover your mouth, wash your hands. You should have been doing that in the first place. Wear a face mask if you go out. Don't act up. Just put the mask on when you go in the building if that's the requirement. Just do like the people are asking. The ultimate act of self-love is to stay in the house as much as possible. Join me next Saturday, because I'm back on Next Level with Trenace. I love you. Be authentic. And see you next week.
Took me a while to get to this place. I'm so glad